Remodelers and builders, welcome back to the growth framework. We are talking about attract and the third ring in our marketing bullseye here, which is earned traffic. So if you missed the first few, you'll want to go back and check out the website and the foundation, which is at the center. The first ring is going to be owned traffic, and we are going to talk about, there is a little bit of overlapping factors between owned and earned. We'll talk about that today. The second ring we just covered in the last video, which is rented traffic, so all about paid ads. And now we're in this final ring of the bullseye, which is earned traffic. So let's zoom out a little bit and just make sure we have a good understanding of kind of how to think about these rings. And so we obviously at the center of the bullseye, we have our foundation, and that is the website. But then our first ring is owned. And so this is that owned traffic. And an easy way to remember this is that's where you say it. The second ring is rented traffic, and we just talked about that with paid ads, and that is you pay for it, right? Because in here you're paying for every click. Here, you're creating a lot of content. You're building it. That's blog content, video content, podcasts, project spotlights, website content. You're saying all that. You're creating that content. And then we're currently going to talk about the third ring, which is earned traffic. And that is someone else says it. And so this is where we're looking to build third-party validation, basically. And what we see is generally, if you have a third party and they're talking about you, that carries a little more weight, right? And a good way to think about that is just like when you get work and it's a referral. It's because your past customer said that you're awesome instead of you saying that you're awesome. And so it carries more weight coming from a past customer. And so this is the same concept, but just applied to your brand and online. Is we're saying, hey, how can we create some earned traffic, which is going to be other sources, other people talking about your company and your brand in a positive light, so that we can, one, get more traffic from that, but then two, as you'll see in a little bit, how that actually influences some of these inner rings. So this is a good framework for just like, where are we in the marketing bullseye and how are we trying to drive more of those right fit people, right fit clients to your business. So we're going to start with a framework here that makes this ring and this channel earn traffic a little more methodical than just trying to randomly approach it. And so we're going to start up here, and this is the pitch, publish, pull. So we basically got 3 steps here, and the first step is to pitch. And so what we're really talking about here is like pitching stories. So you might think about this, you know, in a past time, you would, you know, pitch more stories to like reporters and newspapers and try to get your company featured. A lot of that is happening digitally now, where people are picking up stories about companies, they're getting write-ups done. You've probably seen a lot of the like, you know, Forbes authors, and that's a big part of that strategy is like, hey, I was listed as an author in Forbes. And part of the reason businesses or thought leaders are doing that is because Forbes has some credibility, some validation, right? We associate a certain thing with that organization, and typically it's, oh wow, they talk about important stuff. And so if you get featured in there, then suddenly that adds some credibility to your business. So that's just a kind of a larger example, but this applies in a lot of different ways. And so as you think about pitching, we can target a number of different things. And so in this first step, we want to figure out like, well, who could we pitch to? And so we're going to have, you know, maybe your local, you know, lifestyle magazines. You might have, you know, business journals and magazines. You've got the home and garden publications. You've got podcasts. And then you've got, NARI, NHB, you've got, peer groups, all kinds of industry-specific, publications, websites, magazines that you could go and pitch to. And so you might be thinking, like, what am I pitching them? And so you need a story, right? And you need some sort of story to approach these organizations with, and that could just be, hey, we won the best of in our local area last year for our category in our town, and we think there's an interesting story here of how we went about doing that. Or we won this prestigious award, or we won, these 3 awards in these different categories, and we want to share how we went about doing those. And so it doesn't take a lot, but you need a little bit of an angle, a little bit of a story. Like, why would these groups want to feature you? Is there something unique that you're doing in your company around company culture and the way you're changing the landscape? Is there something cool you do around career growth that you think would be helpful to other businesses? And so maybe the Business Journal would want to pick that up. So some of this, having it be industry related, is great, but it also doesn't need to be. You could just be a local business running a great business, and you're going to get featured in some business magazines. But what this is doing, and you'll see how, is it starts to influence some of these platforms, especially when it comes to AI. So some of this earned traffic is going to be directly tied to generating leads. A lot of this bucket has to do with elevating your brand and your positioning and giving your overall website and your overall authority online a boost. And so that is why it's the outer ring, because it's you have kind of the least control over it, but it also is more of an influencing ring than like, this is going to drive me a ton of traffic, leads, and business today. Okay, so back to this. We're pitching, so we've established who we're going to target. And then we're going to get these stories featured, right? We're going to reach out to all these organizations. Hey, here's my I think I have a story for you. I have a little pitch. Would love to do an article. Would love to jump on your podcast and talk about X, Y, Z. And then we get to the publish step. And so these companies are going to publish, these organizations, these magazines, they're going to publish it. But then you can republish that, right? And so we can post to your site, but you can also include things like as featured in. And you can start to see very quickly how this earned ring is connected with the owned ring. Because when we talked about that, and especially to your website, as featured in, if you place that on your website, hey, as featured in, NARI and Forbes and this podcast and this, that starts to build trust and credibility, which are things that we're trying to do on our website. If you post this content to your site, that actually is now you saying it, but you're actually just kind of redistributing it because someone else said it, and then you're also sharing that someone else said it, and you're putting that on your site. And so you get a little bit of that benefit there as well. And so these are things that we're going to do to publish. You can put this on your social. So we talked about your site. You can put it on your social. You can actually sometimes include some of this in ads as well, depending on what the post was or what the credibility piece was. For example, we've been on the Inc. 5000 list for the last couple of years of fastest growing companies. Well, we can include that as kind of a verification piece, again, third-party validation, but we can include that in ads and on our website. And so those things will help you build up trust and credibility when people are on your site, and it also gives you fodder for some of your owned and rented traffic. So that's publish. And then the last one is pull. And so what we want to do is we want to take these stories that are getting published on all of these and pull some of that traffic back in to your site. And so we're going to have links to your site, and then we can have, a CTA. But what we're doing here with pull, and this is the important part, just like we did with rented, is we're turning earned into owned. And so somebody sees this post here, there's a link back to your site, they click back to your site, they fill out a form, whether it's downloading a lead magnet or booking a meeting, filling out your contact us form. Now we have their email address, which is owned traffic. So now we have more control over this traffic, and we're building our asset base and our digital real estate. And so again, with these outer rings, the thing that we're really trying to do is push as much of this traffic inward as we can and convert it. Because again, someone else is saying this, someone else is posting it on their site. We don't have as much control. You get to control what you post on your blog, what you post on your website. You have the ultimate control. Rented, you can control your budget, and within the advertising guidelines, you can pretty much post a lot of stuff and run it as ads. But again, you have to pay for every single click. With earned, it's kind of like the rented traffic bucket, but you're not paying for it. You're trying to earn the ability to post on someone else's site and ideally have them post it on their site, and they're saying something good about you. And so we want to push that traffic back to us and convert it into our own traffic that we can control. So that's the framework to follow. And then we just want to cover one more thing here, which is just getting a little bit more tactical with this. Okay, so what are some things that we can do to kind of accelerate this process? So we can do projects. So this could be award-winning. So again, if you have an award-winning project, you could probably go to any of these organizations and pitch, hey, I'd love to tell you the whole story about how we did this project, and it led to this, award. You can also sometimes, and this is kind of a blend of earned and rented, but you can go to these groups and say, hey, I'd love to promote this project spotlight on my page, and they might charge you to send it to like their email list or something. So sometimes you can borrow from someone else's email list. Another thing you can do is events. So if any of these groups are running events, you could be a speaker. And that can be a way where you can actually just, you can do the event, but you'll actually have a speaker right up on their page. It'll have your name, your company's name, it'll have the topical authority. And so again, some of this we did a deep dive in the first ring, but this stuff starts to actually influence your ability to show up in both Google and AI. And so we're starting to get some influencing benefit here. So we're going to, any like mentions over here, so it's going to be third-party mentions, getting more reviews and features. So we talked about like the as featured in. Those things really help tell, especially with AI. AI is going out and looking for all of these mentions on different sites. And so it's like, wow, this person was a speaker at this event and their company was winning this award and this award because these companies talked about it, and they were featured over here. And so you start getting all of this, online publicity basically, but it's telling AI more about your business and they're getting a deeper understanding. And so some of this you may feel like, man, I'm just going out and kind of trying to like brag about some awards I won, or I'm trying to go out and just be this, this speaker on this topic. Why am I doing all this? I'm just trying to run this business over here. What it's doing is it's building credibility and it's building trust. And yes, it's doing that for AI, which is super helpful in attracting all those. But again, when somebody's on your website, we're trying to build trust and authority. And if we have all of these third parties that are saying great things about you and we just mention them on your own website, we're really building all of this third-party proof that then we can demonstrate and show and put in front of our ideal prospects. So it's worthwhile to build these things up, and it's worthwhile in the direct sales conversion of a prospect on your site, but it's also worthwhile because of the direction AI and Google are going in the amount of information they can consume and what they can see about your brand and your company's brand online. So back to more like tactical things, we're trying to like be the local expert. And so if you're in a very specific area, if you can start going to events, if you can start hopping on podcasts, if you can start getting featured in, the local newspapers and business journals, all of a sudden you are seen by both, again, digital platforms and real people getting to your website that, hey, this individual, you as the owner, you're truly an expert in this space. But also your company has a great process for creating these home transformations for homeowners, and your company starts to be featured as the local expert. Okay, a couple more tactical things that you can do here. something like a supplier spotlight. So you probably work with a lot of different partners, suppliers, vendors. You can go to those people that you work with on a regular basis and say, hey, I'd love to do like a spotlight page on your blog. If I did all the legwork and wrote it up, would you mind publishing that on your site? And that can be an easy way to go and get 2, 3, 4, 6, 10 features on sites that are in your local market, that are people that you work with, and then now you're building up that third-party validation. The great thing about that is you can say, hey, if this will help me get more work, this is how it's going to influence my business, and so when I get more work, I hire you for the work that I need you to do. And so that can be something that that serves them as well and gives them a powerful reason to do that. Another thing you can do is write local guides, and this is something that we've been doing for years for some of our clients. There's actually a client that recently retired that we worked with for a long time, and he was in a very niche kind of like vacation area, and so he built a lot of second homes and vacation homes. And he really understood content marketing pretty early on when we were preaching it, and he was on board. And so we did a lot of best ski resorts in the area, best hiking trails, best lakes, and we covered all of this kind of lifestyle content. And so he kind of his website became a local guide in the sense that if people were Googling this stuff in the area, they would find his site. But then all of a sudden they're on a site and they could go to like available floor plans and kind of start browsing around. And some of these local guide type pieces of content end up getting linked to and featured by other local publications, because they're like, wow, this is really good content. And so he started getting all of this third-party validation, and then some of that traffic, again, it's a smaller percentage, led to becoming customers, because again, that's a very broad topic, but what it's doing for him is it's building third-party validation, and especially now, I really would have loved to have seen how well his site would have done with AI, but again, he has since retired, but it did do very well in Google and was able to bring him a lot of traffic, and again, smaller percentage of that was ready to buy, but it was able to benefit his site globally from how does Google see his site as an authority, and not just for these topics, but other topics that he's writing about. So this can be a nice way for you to also build some of that third-party validation. So as we look at this earned traffic ring, we have to remember that it is the outer ring. It's more of an influencing ring than with owned traffic, where you're directly controlling all the content, publishing it to your site. You aren't necessarily having to pay for this, especially if you're doing it strategically, where you're going out and you're pitching and you're trying to get stories created. Most of these organizations, they're looking for content all the time. They're looking for stories. And so most of the time you won't have to pay for it. You're going to earn it through pitching it and getting noticed. Then we're going to publish it so that other people start to see it and these platforms start to see it. And then we want to make sure it's still, if we can, get those links back to our site. We're doing good conversion best practices, offering them an on-ramp to sales or a lead magnet on your site so we can convert anyone and turn them into, again, earned into owned. And then here's just some tactical ideas for you as you're thinking about how could I approach this. I feel like the easy ones here are the supplier spotlight, like going to people you already work with, seeing if you can get a story featured on their site, on their blog. And then if you've won some awards, maybe you're a 40 under 40 business owner, if you won some big design awards, going to your local newspaper and organizations and saying, hey, we just won this award. We'd love to share that story. Is this something that you think your audience and your readership would get a lot out of? And those can be some quick and easy ways to start building up that third-party validation. And the other thing I don't want to skip over too much is also just reviews. Getting reviews on Google, Meta, other platforms, like those are third-party earned validation. Again, it's someone else saying it, and reviews have a big impact on your ability to show up in AI and also ranking on Google. So there you have it. We've covered the full marketing bullseye. Now we've started with the website. We went out and covered all three rings. And again, the goal is if you're working on an outer ring, pushing that traffic in, converting it to own traffic. And in the next video, we're going to do a deep dive on convert. And we're going to move to the next pillar. We're going to wrap up Attract and talk about, hey, how do we do the best job possible in converting the most and the best leads for your business? So we'll see you in the next one.